Good morning and welcome to Behind the Screen. I am JM, and this is a show where we hang out and we talk about games, board games, card games, mainly role-playing games, miniature games, and things that are beautiful and things that inspire us. And I had the great opportunity to go to North Texas RPG Con this last weekend. I went to Chupa 2 weekends ago, North Texas RPG Con. Mark came down to hang out. And first of all, good morning to Mark and John Doom and Grom and Tink. It is always good to see all of you. And so Mark and I went, and sadly, it was weird. We went with Mark, Tink, and I were like, hey, we're going to go to North Texas RPG Con. And we watched for tickets, and then all of the tickets were sold out. And so one of the cool things about North Texas is they keep it to 500 tickets to buy online, and then you can just walk up the day of. They'll sell tickets for the weekend. And it's a really tiny con. We're talking 500 people at any given point, I think. And it's primarily an old school gaming convention. Jeffrey Talenian was there with Hyperborea. Black Lodge Games guys were there, Lamentations of the Flame Princess, Goodman Games with DCC, a couple of old school vendors. I don't think I picked up any. I only picked up two things over the con. That's not true. I also, on a little side story, Inner City Games was there. Now, that name probably means nothing to anyone on in the channel, but it is a game company that I played a ton of their games growing up because they were from my hometown of Waukegan. The guy who ran my local hobby shop was their business partner for a while. And they put out the coolest miniature game I've ever played. Now, you know I love Conquest. It is probably my favorite miniature game right now. Conquest Infinity. My son's really into 40K, so I got back into 40K with some Necrons. But the Battletech I love, but the coolest one that I ever played was this game called Fuzzy Heroes. And the idea of the game is it's your stuffed animals have come to life, and you play on a blanket. Your blanket is your battlefield. Ideally, a blanket on a bed, but you can lay a blanket out on the floor. You put some pillows down, you put some Lego towers or whatever. And then you each get 1 to 3 miniatures, and you take your stuffed animal and you measure its longest linear distance, and that tells you its movement speed and how many hit points it has and how many ability points it gets, and its primary color adjusts the defenses up and down. So if it's camouflage, it's harder to hit. If it's bright pink, it's easier to hit. And they came out with supplements that include added spy gadgets, superheroes, and Mark bought me the second edition that also has a role-playing system. I have yet to read it, but when I do, expect a review of Fuzzy Heroes. But we walked in, and Mark drove down, which was great to hang out with him. And we went to the convention and just basically hit the sign-up boards. I really wanted to play in a Hyperborea game run by Jeffrey Talenian. He does 2 every year that start at 7 p.m. and go to 11, and drinking is a must. And I'm like, that sounds like, my kind of Hyperborea game. But sadly, we couldn't do that. But Mark got to, we were going to sign up for this game called Horde Wars, which I had heard of, but I had thought it was a miniature game. And then we went and talked to the writers at the booth and found out it was a role-playing game. And so we went and hung out, and we were going to play in 2 games. I unfortunately had to miss one on Friday, but Mark had such a great time that he bought the book and signed us up for another one. And I got to play with Mark and Tink and some of Tink's family and a couple of other guys at the table who were just great. And I liked it so much that I went and purchased Horde Wars, and that's what we're talking about today. So Horde Wars is a fantasy RPG. It's a little bit more low fantasy, I would say, than kind of more modern games. And I mean, you have elf, dwarf, orc, human. That's it. And it's interesting because it uses a D12. So for all of you barbarian players, finally a game for you. But it's very simple. D12 plus modifier versus target number. I've just explained the game to you. It uses a lot of familiar language that you might, if you've played any other version of, fantasy role-playing, this is great. But also, let's take a look. This cover was done by John the Basic Expert, and it's gorgeous. It's exactly, what's in here is exactly what's on the tin. Primarily, humanocentric, knights fighting, but then there's some background magic. What's interesting to me mechanically about this game that I really like is character creation. Character creation is pick 2 classes out of the 21 and mash them together. And it's not like you only get parts of each. You pick 2 classes and you get all of their starting abilities. The only thing you have to choose between is which classes starting gear do you get. So you start off pretty epic. I was playing a purple wizard is what I called him. He was a blue wizard and a red wizard, so lightning and fire focus. And I had about 18 hit points, so I felt pretty heroic off the bat. Once the game got rolling, there were several mechanics that I ended up really, really liking. Armor. Armor gives you a set of damage types that you are now protected from, and you take half damage rounding down. That's how armor works in the game. Most of your abilities, your special abilities, are limited to either once a round or once per day, and giving you some cool special abilities. Like for my wizard, I was able to cast lightning bolt once a day and fireball once a day, but then I had these 2 kind of at-will spells that I was able to use basically all the time. As a heroic character, if you are proficient in your spell or your weapon, you get to make 2 attacks as opposed to 1. So any player character can pick up any weapon in the game and use it effectively. But if you're proficient in it, you get to make 2 attacks, which also does something that I really love, like in Jackals. It allows the horde of Horde Wars to really come to the forefront. I think we had multiple fights where we were outnumbered 2-1, and it didn't feel completely overwhelming. Leveling up is great in the fact that you get small incremental hit point increases, but also you get to pick perks. And perks are things like, hey, that once a day fireball that you have, now you get an extra use of any one of your once per day abilities. So the curve for leveling up is much flatter. You start off heroic and then have a kind of flat increase. You gain extra abilities as you level up. Features, which are essentially like feats. Every 4 levels, you get a capstone ability, either from your species or one of your classes, which allows you to do something really cool, and then you can get additional uses of that. Equipment is actually super easy. I like tracking encumbrance, but I understand that some people do not, and they made this very simple. You can hold 8 items plus your fitness. Bulky items count as 2, and most of your containers add additional slots to help you carry things. It's got domain rules, it's got great treasure tables, it's got great random encounter tables. It would do very well as a sandbox style game that is far more rules light than kind of my preferred sandbox game, which is, Axe. Think of all of the things you can do with Axe, but in a much more, less simulationist, more gamey kind of way. The majority of this book is actually monsters, and the monsters are fantastic. We have everything from kind of, NPCs and beasts to kind of your classic monsters like Cyclopses, to Cthulhian monsters like Deep Ones. And the monsters have engaging mechanics that reinforce the narratives of the creatures you're fighting. So, for example, the Goblin King that we fought in the first adventure had the ability to pick up minions and use them to essentially soak damage that was incoming. So the other thing that's amazing about Horde Wars, and I've heard a couple of other reviewers bring this up, and I have to admit they're right. This might be the most clear and concisely written role-playing game I have ever encountered, including Jackals and Savage Worlds. There is very little ambiguity in these rules. They're very clear and succinctly stated. And one of the things that I like is the fact that all of the rules for the game is chapter 1. It's about 13 pages. By a PDF, you can just hand your players the rules of the game and get ready to go from there. But there's really no need to do that because, again, as I've explained, you now know how to play Horde Wars. It's truly that simple of a game. And again, like I said, you know, most characters are going to start off with, let's see here. Because I do want to talk about combat, but I wanted to kind of see what the starting HPs were. Because starting HP is 18 plus your fitness attribute, which is going to be between 0 and 4. So you're looking at 18 to 24 hit points, and then at the... if you get all the way to level 12, you're looking at 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 30 more hit points. So most characters at max level are going to have 48 to 50 hit points. That's a really tight damage band for dealing with PCs. They take 1 a day, so it limits the amount of healing and really puts the healing focus back on the character classes. Or, as I said, administer a healing spell. Now, there's a basic rules and an advanced rules. I'd recommend getting the advanced rules because it has all the stuff from the basic rules setting that it comes with and some sample characters. But again, like I said, you have Kingdoms and Warfare rules, nautical, travel encounters, a chapter on game mastery. I would read the skill section because there's so many like hidden details about the world in there, including astronomical events, seasonal festivals, major religions, different things like that. So yeah, I think that's all I wanted to talk about this game. Oh, aside from the fact that, I mean, criticals are super easy. You're using a D12, so instead of a 5% chance for a critical hit or a failure, you're really looking at more like, it's like 8.4% any single die coming up. And when you critical, you just double your damage. Pretty simple. But they have a pretty robust trait, weapon trait feature. So if you have a penetrating weapon and you roll a critical, you ignore any resistances provided by armors. You have different types of metals do extra dice of damage versus different types of creatures. So bronze is really good against beasts, black iron is really good against player characters, and silver is good against monsters. And then when you find the magic treasure tables, there are even more metal types. One of the cool ones is Assassinate. Assassinate is a weapon property that just says on the first round of combat, you do an extra die of damage because the weapon is good at, stabbing people quickly. Yes, John Doom, I think there are a couple of things, and what's interesting is Horde Wars and Shadow Dark, I think, came out around the same time, and there were several parallel developments there. The D4 deaths thing, and then basically everybody rolls initiative, the highest value goes first, and then you proceed clockwise or counterclockwise based off that person's choice, kind of around the table. When you hit the GM, all of the monsters get to go, and then you continue on. Which was interesting because one of the authors said that they very quickly discovered, well, one, it moves fast. You always know what the initiative order is. 2, you can stack the table where people are sitting to kind of guarantee that no matter which way it goes, one of your heavy hitters is going before the monsters. So you put your wizards on either side of the GM so that they get to go. And one of the authors said what he started doing is he's got a friend who will show up and just run monsters, and he puts them opposite him at the table. So there's always two people who are going. And I think I would create a little idol or something that I could set up and say, okay, this person, this is now representative of, you know, half of the monsters going or something like that. I'd have to play it a lot more to really see if that's something I would want to fine tune. But again, 21 classes, and you get to pick two. If it's been a while since I've done factorials, but I think that's about 191 class combinations to pick from. And your classes are things like, right, archers and assassins, and then multiple different types of wizards and blade masters and tavern wenches and thieves and Vikings and monks. And again, you get to pick whichever two you want. So even if somebody else, if Mark and I both pick blue wizard, we both get Jolt, which on a critical hit, you know, you get to make 2 lightning attacks, and on a critical that do 2d6 damage each. And on a critical hit, the person loses their next turn. We both get lightning bolt once a day and fly once a day. But if I pick a crusader, suddenly I'm a member of the church who can heal as well as fly and cast lightning. So maybe sort of a patron of Thor, if you will, a priest of Thor. Whereas if Mark picked, you know, a thief and a blue wizard, well, suddenly now you're kind of this, you know, magically enhanced thief who uses sky magic to reach hard to reach places. And it's kind of a really cool combination of things. So again, Horde Wars, you start off feeling pretty heroic. Again, 18 hit points on average. Probably on average, you're looking at more like 19 or 20 hit points per character. But it only tops out at in the high 40s, low 50s. 12 levels in. You're not worried about, you know, 200 hit point fighters or anything like that. Game advancement is often but incremental, right? So you get one new use of a power, or you get, you know, a new training in weapons or armor or skills, and those kind of go up slowly. Capstone abilities are quite powerful. So for example, let's go and look at the red wizard, which is the fire wizard. You can pick things like Firestorm. Once a day, make an attack for 68 fire damage and apply it to up to 3 targets in short range. If you miss, they take half damage. Flame Wall. Choose an area of up to 4 combat spaces high and 6 long within short range for the next minute. It blocks attacks at anyone who moves through it. Takes 48 damage. Teleporter. You can immediately teleport to another location. One of the cool starting abilities for the blue wizard was... What was it? The blue wizard or the red wizard that did teleportation? I was able to swap locations. So I ran up and fireballed a bunch of the goblins, and then I swapped location with the Goblin King and put the Goblin King right in base-to-base contact with all of our melee fighters, which was, you know, pretty awesome. Let's see here. Yes, the PDF, I'll put links in the show notes. The PDF is $20. I think the core book, the soft cover was $40, and the hardcover is $60. The hardcover lays flat, which I like, but the art is far more vibrant. I don't know whether it is a paper quality thing or what the difference between the soft and the hardcover is, but like the artwork is the same in each, but the colors are far richer in the soft cover. The art, John Doom, good questions. I don't know about Foundry. I will take a look into that and ask. The art is primarily only in the bestiary chapters. You get tables, you get tiny bits of spot art for like creatures, but like throughout the bestiary chapter, every page has at least one piece of art, if not two. And I mean, all of the art in here is great. It's the coloring is pretty, I don't want to say standardized, but similar throughout. The art style, whoever did the art direction, and they were doing, I think there were 2, 4, 6, there were 7 different artists, but it doesn't feel like disparate as you're moving through it. If you're looking for a fun, fast, pretty simple game to pick up that still has some robustness and depth to it, I can't highly recommend Horde Wars enough. This is probably going to see at least a one-shot at my table here shortly, if not a... if 1 or 2 of my players have to step away from one of our games for any length of time, we might be doing a short campaign of this. It is possibly the game that I got most excited about this year, like a new game that I picked up. Again, I was not expecting to like it as much as I did. I had basically talked myself out of picking it up multiple times and made the decision I was not going to pick it up at North Texas RPG Con, and then I played in it, and the GM we played with was a friend of the authors, but not one of the authors, and he had played in a lot of Horde Wars, but I think it was his 2nd or 3rd time ever running it. And so Steve did a great job, but it was clear he was nervous and didn't know the rules probably as well as, you know, somebody who had been running the game for a while. And yet we still had a ton of fun with the system. So yeah, check it out. I'll put the links in the show notes, and John Doom will have to get a one-shot in so you can try it out and tell me what you think. I am a huge fan of Foundry support because it allows me to play with people on the Iconic server far easier than I mean, I wouldn't be able to play with a lot of the people that we've done one-shots with. I'm still trying to convince just John Doom to move to the DFW area so that we can just play games all the time. But he has yet to become independently wealthy, as have I. Speaking of Foundry support, the company that I work with, Strange Owl Games, that I co-own with Tim, we've got a backer kit going on. We are helping World's Largest RPGs bring the World's Largest Dungeon to 5th edition, kind of a 20th anniversary Platinum edition, if you will. And they just announced Foundry support for Book 1. So I'm really excited about that. Again, we're just sort of aiding on the production side of things. This is really World's Largest RPGs kind of project, but I'm always glad to signal boost it. Thursday, we're going to talk about another purchase that I made at North Texas RPG Con, a adventure site called The Shucked Oyster. So if you enjoy fantasy brothels, you should come back on Thursday and we'll talk about it. It's a little adventure put out by, or adventure site, because it's not really an adventure site put out by the gentleman over at Black Lodge Games. So that's it. That's Horde Wars. Check it out. If you play in my Wednesday group, expect this to come to the table at some point this summer. We'll be back on Thursday with the Shucked Oyster, and I will see you guys all then. Until next time, stay safe, stay healthy, stay gaming. I'm JM. This has been Behind the Screen. Until then, have a good one, everybody.